I'm E.
I'm Rob.
I be focused.
Sketch 185.
Colossal Structure.
Iliad 7.
Welcome to the next movement, folks.
Yeah, cold brew coffee to heart, kicking the chest anthem, coaster crews that foster this art. Give me your best answer. Ted dancing walls to the park. He was more than death ranting. I was jumping curbs in a car, thinking about tech advancements. We back again, put them on their backs again. This all day act is friends. This shit is bug. We flipping mattresses. I pack my fist. Somebody need to get beat with bastards. I mean that Joe Pesci begged for his life and I still crack his shit. Fuck that cracker shit. No really, fuck that cracker shit. Wasting lines on the pill and tasteless makes me wanna scratch and sniff. I'm saying not everybody's a fascist pig. Also saying no one ever was born a bigot asshole kid. All hail the originators of this natural shit. Kindle, eat your heart out. We wear crowns with golden afro pits. Carol had a daughter, made a product, then they bought the biz. Guess there's no more bombing offices, just silent auctioning.
Thank you for tuning in. And as you heard, we have most, not all, but most of Tomorrow Kings here with us. Thank you, fellas, for coming through. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Most definitely.
Absolutely. So let's dig right in. The new album is called Salt. It's your first album in over a decade. And this project has been described as an album that sees Tomorrow Kings at their most focused and imaginative. What makes that statement true for y'all?
That's a good question. Very good question.
I mean, I kick it off and then y'all can take it. But I think it's obviously when somebody makes that statement, they're kind of making a comparison to what they've known us as before. And so I think that it's more of the maturity, the density, the intentionality of subject matter. Like we've always been intense about our subject matter, but I think that with any maturity, us being fathers now, you know, I know I was the first father of the crew, but we got a lot of fathers now in the crew. You know, husbands, and just, you know, just grown men, you know what I'm saying? When we made the first project, we was ripping the streets and kind of wilding out, you know what I'm saying? So now, not to say that we've calmed down, we probably calmed down in that sense, but you know, still at a high level when it comes to this music.
And like, that's what Focus is saying. We've done a lot of music individually since then. And with that, we've done a lot of music with each other since then. So this kind of like culminates in all of the techniques, styles, and things that we've learned and picked up over the years. So we're just a lot sharper than we used to be. And like more within our style, you know, than we were then because it's developed over years.
I can say for sure, we've always been wild creative. The way we come up with concepts for songs, usually it's always starts as like a conversation or like some funny, silly joke or something very, very real and very like strange. And so like definitely I would say like as wild and as creative as we could possibly be. I know for N.R.T.M, we kind of went wild with every topic. Whatever we were thinking, whatever we were feeling, like if somebody had something to say about it, they would jump in. If you didn't, you would stay back. So I mean, like it's super focused, but we still kind of went everywhere with the concepts. Whatever someone had an issue with, if you had an idea about it too, touch on it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like to build off of what all the brothers are saying. There's something that happened over those 10 years, over those 10 plus years, that because N.R.T.M was kind of, it was sort of in the moment work, and not that Salt is not, but it was in the moment and where, like, you know, we get these song concepts that we just kind of go and we'll let the idea flesh itself out. I think that happened in some ways too with Salt, but I see Salt as being a more calculated enterprise in the sense that, you know, the song titles have the same and the concept have the same energy that N.R.T.M concepts did, but there's a 2 maybe a 10.0 to that, because I think what we did conceptually, the tapestry, is really more thought out for me.
Mm.
And if I could add just to what I think Sketch made a point that I want to emphasize when he said that even though it took over a decade for this project to happen, that we were still active. right? And so when Tomorrow Kings originally came together around '07-ish, we were active at that time and we was fans of each other. But at the same time, like when we said we started in Chicago, like everybody was in Chicago at that time. Everybody was on the underground scene in Chicago. And so, being fans and performing with each other, that's what kind of made the makeup of N.R.T.M, right?
Mm.
With Salt, this is after the fact of us, expanding out and everybody's in different places of the country, but we're locked in. We were still active in our own respect, whether we was performing in New York, Chicago, California, whatever it may be. We'll find times where we could link up together to do shows together, but we were still active. So this is the makeup of that growth and that expansion, but also that not necessarily disconnect, but just more of the web expanding. And now you kind of hear what that growth sounds like now.
Well, obviously, one of the stories we're touching on already in regards to this new album is the 12-year gap between the first Tomorrow Kings record and this new one. I wonder if y'all could talk a little bit about the circumstance that led y'all to begin working on Salt, the new album, and the timing of its release.
So we've been talking about on another full-length record for a while. But this is coming on the heels of all of us not only moving, but all of us doing records. Gyroscope, I just Collasoul and I Be Fokuz. I put out a bunch of records since then. Billy has put out a bunch of records. I put out stuff. Lots put out some things. Social Boomers put out records. I mean, just all of that was going on, but we hadn't like figured out production and things like that at this point. And then, like about 6.5 years ago, a buddy of mine, Aoi, who him and his production partner, DOS4GW, had did a remix for N.R.T.M back in the day. He was visiting the homies in New York. So me and him built, did a couple shows, drinking, talking. And he was just like, yo, I want to do a record with you. Right then, light bulb went off, and I was like, my crew's trying to do a record. And he was like, you know what? All right, word. Let's see how it goes. And he started emailing us beat packs. And I started, because we still have a very active group chat. And I started like sending out his music to the guys in the group. And we started, kind of building on it. And then I started sending them beat packs. So it just started to grow. And like, we realized like 2-3 songs in, we just wanted to go with one producer. And it was just like, like Bio produced most of the first one. And this one was one of those situations that once we had production sound, it was just like, okay, now after all this time, at that point, 7 years later, it's time to lock in.
Yeah, and I would say just with the density of the lyrics and just like where we were at that time, we was in the middle of the pandemic. Like literally the pandemic started when our pens start moving. And so you can only imagine just like at that time, everybody had time. We had time because we was in the house, and it was a lot of stuff going on, and just like with the Chicago riots, and it was just a lot of stuff going on, and that wasn't just Chicago, it was all over the world, right? And I think it was just a lot to absorb, and I think it was the perfect canvas to kind of write on in that time. So that kind of just like that was the building blocks of it just becoming what it became to this point. And we knew that we had a project like maybe 2 years ago, but it wasn't done yet. And so now it just feels really good that it's done and we can present it to the world.
Yeah, and what's funny is like it just so happens that the things that we were going through and the things that the world was going through at that time, we're still going through literally today. So even though the record essentially started in what, like 2019, it's still super current, you know? When we were all like left at our own devices, like stuck in the house, no one could really go anywhere. Nothing was really open. So we were writing every day, on the phone with each other every day, recording, sending emails back and forth. That's how it came together.
Like all of that, it really took a time. We had a lot of time to just not only be home and have time, but that gave us the space to think really deeply about what was going on and not just with us. And so that was something that I remember distinctly, and I think the rhymes, they're not just the rhymes, but the overall feel of the project dictates that.
After you released your debut album, N.R.T.M, you did an interview with a publication called USG Mag. And during that conversation, when the group was asked how you would describe the release, Gilead said, "For me, the record is less about us explaining what/who we are and more about us being who/what we are." Do you all feel like you're moving in a similar way on Salt?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, we just we are just an evolved version of that. You just get our life and technique through these songs.
The song "No Brands" I think embodies it completely. You know what I mean? We are the same crazy dudes from 07, 08 from Chicago, even though we're everywhere else, but we are still authentically ourselves. A little bit crazy, super smart, super technical, fun, wild, in some points, controlled still.
And you can, and despite where we moved to, you can hear where we're from. In the style.
All day. And yeah, there's some art that deals with, that kind of gets lost in the packaging of it. I think we say fuck that, because we are just who we're becoming every day. And so that, I think, is most important, is that I don't feel like there's a barrier between the writing and who we are. I believe we are the writing.
Yeah, and I think as unapologetic as our approach is, it's very calculated at the same time, but it's calculated to the standard that we've set for ourselves. I think what brought us together was the aesthetic of pushing the envelope. And that's the reason why we respect each other so much. And so, in pushing the envelope, that's always been our precursor, our pilot to anything. It's just like, is this pushing boundaries? Is this making people uncomfortable? Is this provoking thought? But at the same time, being calculated in that approach, like what heartstring or what chord are we really trying to hit with this one, versus the other one. So, it's definitely calculated as much as it's unapologetic.
As Sketch was saying a minute ago, the first album was produced almost entirely by Vile. It had a unique sound. At times it was loud, sonically dense, chaotic, very much sounded like it was from the future. The new album was produced entirely by Aoi. It's even louder, it's more dense, it's more chaotic. Could you talk about what y'all were looking for sonically from the production? And you may have already addressed this, but the decision to just have him produce the entire album.
Hey, truth be told, can I skip this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Part of it is that's the shit that we like, but it was the hardest for us to get from people. No, I don't want to jazz all the time. No, I'm not trying to get this all the time. No, Carolina Def Jux wasn't the biggest influence, but it was a big influence. And we we're from house music. Like, we like electronic sound of things. We enjoy hard driving music. And we have a flow that requires a certain amount of breath, a certain amount of meter, and a certain amount of percussion, with it. Because, without that, it just sounds like spoken word. Plus, our music, when we got it, just didn't match what everybody else was doing, which was perfect. Things have gotten a lot quiet, in the underground. Abstract in a cool way, but in some pockets, less percussive. And this right here just harkens back, to the visceral feeling that we enjoyed when we were like forming as MCs and forming as a crew. The first track on our mix, well, the first track we recorded for our first mixtape, Android Killer. It was like a good example of what it's like when we all get into the right zone. And Salt is a whole album of that.
Yeah, I will also say, I know N.R.T.M comes up a lot, but it started with industrial music. And so I definitely urge people to go back to industrial music, because industrial music was us imagining what that sounds like with us together. And also, I urge people to listen to us individually, like listen to Gyroscope, me and Collasoul, listen to Sketch albums, listen to Gilead album, and when you listen to our different projects and then you hear it come together, it will all start to kind of make sense in a way of like, oh, this is what it sounds like when when it comes together like Voltron. And so, but industrial music, I think, was sort of kind of like that. It was kind of like the fundamental approach of the sound that we wanted to have. Because even on industrial music, like that was me chopping up certain tracks that already existed that we liked, right? But it was also original tracks on there as well that we gravitated to. So, you know, Salt today, that production is like a playground for us. Like when you finally found that, you like, oh, okay, we could really, really, stretch out on these type of production.
Yeah, kind of like building on what both the brothers just said about this point of us wanting this production, as Sketch said, and about how Focus is talking about just getting into a certain pocket when you and how the individual albums kind of hint at that, but don't show the fullness of it. Yeah, that's something. There's something that happens when we get together that doesn't happen when we're by ourselves. We all there's a common thread. I would say that and I think as a deconstructionist, so that even the word thread is sometimes problematic. You get what I'm saying? Like there's something common between us all, but when we're in our individual states, you may not even recognize that. When we come together, and I mean, I think there are resonance of that when we do have our individual joints, but there are different realms that converge when TK gets in one room, and the realm that's created when we get together is like, wow. Like with the beast that we have from AO, it's sort of like it when you hear it, and when we heard it, we like, oh shit, it's time to go.
Yeah, it's that heavy shit. That's it. Honestly, like anything El Producto, anything like Techno Animal, like just completely brutal. You know what I mean? At times, still melodic, but definitely more like industrial in that way, like heavy drums, crazy odd synthesizers. Like, yeah,
yeah. The playground metaphor is very apt. Like that feeling is apparent on the record, I think. Yeah, talking about brutal, I started listening to the album and I messaged E and said, yo, this is an all out assault, like on your ears, lyrically and sonically. And this was before I had gotten to the title track, Salt. And that track like breaks down the concept behind the title of the album a little bit and plays with the word salt in all of its forms, seasoning and systems marketed as enhancing flavor or life, but ultimately covering up the actual taste, and in doing so, like poisoning us with like hypertension and racism, right? Assaulting. So what came first, the verbal sonic assault we hear in the music, or this concept surrounding the word salt?
The title definitely came second, but it came early, in the production process, because like everything was intense, but we were writing this, we were writing this with like ambulances whizzing by us, things like that. And I'm not sure how it was for y'all. For me, like lost a lot of people at that time. A lot of people died.
Mhm.
And in which case, like, there was the tension of it. There's the stress of that. We had a woman on a Pepsi commercial trying to stop a riot with a can. There, these were absurd moments. So of course it was stress. So it all just kind of looped in very quickly after a few songs.
Yeah, once the concept was presented, it just made sense. It was fitting. I don't think it was even overthought. It was just again, like when we get together, it's very organic, and it just shows that the chemistry, as I said in the beginning, never left, because even though we're in different geographical locations, we just locked in. We knew what was fitting for us to add and contribute, and we knew the stuff that we needed to sit out on and allow the other people in the crew to do what they needed to do. So once Salt was presented, it was just like, okay, I don't even have to argue with that. It makes sense.
Yeah. Also, can I add one thing to what Focus said? We've had an active group chat the entire time we've been a crew.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the 12 years in between, we were actively talking to each other, actively working with each other. So as soon as the name said, everybody was like, word. Like, we didn't need too much more. It was like, all right, we get this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Nobody ever packed up a bag and said, peace, we ain't talking. That's just not how we are. We've all known each other for a very long time. And before crew, I kind of see it like an hourglass sort of thing, to where we were spread out in the scene. We met each other, we came together, and we formed. And then, even though we spread out, we still were together. And so that title Salt, I think it just really, it emerged from the work for me. It wasn't like it had. It's kind of like if anybody's seen Tron Legacy, and I know this movie has some quality, but it's wonderful in terms of its concepts. There were these group of people in this movie, and the ISOs kind of were. The dude was trying to create this perfect system. He was trying to like make humans live in computers and just solve the world's problems. He created all this stuff in there, but there were these people called the ISOs who just like emerged from nowhere. And they were the ones who had the answers for civilization. They didn't come from anywhere. They just the conditions were right, and they just showed up. I think the title, because it really reflects a lot of what happened in our communities, where we come from, and people we know, and their histories of colonization, the histories of various types of oppression that brought that title up to the fore. And we know what Salt has done, and what we're talking about on this record. It reflects all of that, and it's never preachy. We're just like satirical with it, and that's kind of what that term comes out of satire.
Let's talk about the first single off the record, off the album. Regicide is the name of the track. The word regicide, right, is defined as the act of killing a king. Interesting. Tomorrow Kings, talking about killing kings. Okay, so Malak in his verse on the track really addresses this head on. He says regicide when one tries to normalize genocide, regicide when racism tries to hide homicide, regicide when reality's fallacy becomes so challenging that one considers suicide and you can't let it slide. So there's a pretty clear political statement being made here, but it also seems like there's a statement being made about the resurgence of the group, and maybe that's just my perspective. The Kings y'all knew kind of don't exist anymore. We're older, we live different lives, we're in different places, but now we've been reborn. But I'm wondering, does that like resonate with y'all when you think about this track?
That's what makes art so beautiful, because I'm always interested to see other people's perspective when they receive things. And I learned a long time ago from even the interview with Slug with Atmosphere, he's just like, you're not wrong for having that perspective of my song, even though I didn't intend it to be that. And so I think there's no place to isolate regicide, because I think maybe all of us might have had a certain feeling when we wrote this. I'll say this, as we dive into this song, regicide was the first song we wrote. Am I correct?
Feel like,
Wasn't
yes,
it regicide?
I
Yeah.
believe so, because we heard the beat. Aoi actually put the beat out on a beat tape prior to us writing the song. We heard the beat and was like, hey, I think we need this. He actually fought against it initially, because he's like, hey, man, I already put it out. We're like, yeah, we know, but listen.
But we loved it.
Listen to what we got for it.
We loved it. And the thing was, we didn't have nothing for it. So we loved the track and we knew we wanted to write to it. But we actually had a Tomorrow King show some years ago. I can't remember what year it was. Was it like 2017?
It was 2019.
2019. 2019? Okay, I'm going too far back. But anyway, we had a show not too long ago, and we opened up our set with that beat, but it wasn't with the lyrics you hear now. It was with just like random verses to just open up the show. And so I just wanted to make that caveat that that was like the song that kind of sparked us exploring his production to make this album. But what I would say, and I also had the perspective of, the king on the hill and who thought the king, who thought they were the king on the hill. And it was our time to coup de grace, cut off their heads and show them who the real kings are, because we've been gone for a while, so
Mm.
so like that was my mindset.
Yeah.
But I think you can also, I think it does resonate with me when you say that, like as far as like the kings of before and what we are now, but it was definitely a coup de grace mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all just want to dismantle a lot of the rap at the moment. We made our statements that is also it was also a declaration of war. Me. So I dissed a lot of people on that verse. Not personally. It's just there's a lot of styles that I thought were cool to me. I wanted to poke at.
We all
But it
did.
got popular in the time in which we were away. That's fuck it. I don't care what they're gonna do to me besides nothing. And like that's kind of where we always were. We're like, what you gonna do? Everything you could try to do, we're down. That's a part of how we were. Maybe it's because of where we're from. Maybe it's because we all used to battle. Maybe it's just because there's a certain level of fuck none of us ever gave. And that's why we got along. It was like a return to that. So within the first song, you realize we don't give a fuck what y'all did the last 12 years.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's sort of because there's a genealogical element to this, right? And I think that comes up in what in Fokuz is, your whole style, your whole model was a copy down. Tomorrow Kings is where you got your and people know this. I mean, a lot of people have taken notes from our playbook, and that's not really a secret, not at all. It's not as pat ourselves on the back. It's literally just the fact of the matter. And sometimes they might say it in quiet rooms, where a candle burning, there's like a Masonic.
Hey, Gilead, I knew you was going to say something wild. I was waiting on it.
Hey, Gilead, you out?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. I was actually enjoying what you were saying.
That was amazing.
So to continue this conversation around regicide, some of my favorite lyrics on Salt come from this song. Before I read them, I kind of want to just tell a little story and just set the scene, right? So I recently went to a hip hop show, and like most hip hop shows that I've gone to in the last, I don't even know how long, I was, one of the very few Black people there. So I'm leaving the hip hop show. I'm on the tube coming home, and I'm going through the Salt lyric book. And so I'd already heard the album, but I'm just like, there's just something different about reading lyrics, right? And just retaining the information that way, retaining written words in that context. So I'm reading the words for regicide, and I read, Carol had a daughter, made a product, and they bought the biz. Guess there's no more bombing offices, just silent oxygen. Just silent oxygen. Oh my God, I can't fucking say that word right now. Hold on, give me a minute.
I'm like that every day. Don't worry.
I'm gonna start auctioning. Okay. Jesus Christ.
It is a tough line.
Fuck yeah, I cannot read this shit. Auction.
I fucked it up numerous times.
Welcome to our world of.
It's fucking me up, yo. I can't keep up with y'all. You know what I mean? Rob I don't know. You may have to get creative when you're editing this. But anyways, let's continue. I love these lines because they're just really good. But also, when I heard them, I knew that most white people wouldn't know what you were talking about, right? Like, even if they did a Google search and they have the context clues here, like they're not truly gonna get it, and most likely they're not using Carol's daughter's products, right?
Mhm.
So it just, I don't know, it just was really something that resonated with me in the moment. That's why I told that story. But when you're writing, you're obviously writing about your experience as black men and members of the black community. And so the things that you speak about will undoubtedly reflect that. But I also feel this sense of urgency and intentionality in the way that you choose to share these stories. Is it important for you to center blackness in your work without explanation for yourselves and for the black people listening to it?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
I don't identify as black, but I know what you mean. And so I would say Asiatic, but it's the same, I know what you mean. But yeah,
Sure.
I think it's definitely important because we know what that story is.
Yeah.
What that story is, and we've been drowned by his story. And this is an opportunity to tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, like somehow, and excuse me, hopefully I'm not speaking too much out of turn. Somehow, it seemed like there's been a prevailing narrative in Indian underground rappers, this idea that despite it being black people talking, we're not talking to us
Mm.
for some reason. And I've seen it over the last 20 years, like somehow these Afrocentric stories are just actually fan service for another community. And in which case we always stepped away from that. We're talking to people, we're talking to our people 100% of the time. Like you can listen, it's in English, it's for everybody. But if you can't relate, okay, talk to a black person. You're letting a black person talk to you for an hour in your ear. You might just need to have a conversation with somebody in real life, or look up a lyric, or Google search, or keep listening. Because yeah, we don't have enough time on this planet to be explaining ourselves to somebody that isn't us. That's a waste of oxygen. Listen like everybody else does.
I mean, I always feel like every time I speak up, I have a duty and a responsibility to speak up for us.
Mm,
Always. I feel like every time I turn the mic on, like I'm speaking for me and I'm speaking for them too. Always. I'm speaking for all of us. Like I always felt that responsibility. I know that might sound like intense, that might sound scary, but it's like, yeah, like I'm speaking from the perspective of a black man living in America, living in Chicago as well, which is also a tough place. But I can, like that's the lens that I see it through. Always.
mm,
That's how I
yeah.
approach it every time.
The key word responsibility, I think, is important because I think that's something that we as a crew respect each other because we understand that every word is intentional. It's not
Hmm.
just even when we're just like getting busy and just like, just like sparring, lyrically sparring, it's still intentional. It's
Yeah.
very and so when we highlight the things that our people have gone through and what we're currently going through, um, that message has to be said. It's going to be encryptic sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be smacking you right in your face.
Mm,
But nonetheless, it's a message that has to be said and it won't be held back.
mm,
A lot of what we do, and this is why it's interesting the Regicide and No Brands are right next to each other, because in both of those songs there is an attack on prevalent in indie rap right now, is that there is this tendency to utilize pain and utilize oppression and utilize the victories between the victories off of those things as a marketing tool. And okay, well, because there's too much thought put into a lot of work that I see right now that's more so thought about, well, how can I market this as opposed to what it is? And for us, we don't care. We are becoming who we're becoming. I use the words of becoming, not being. We're becoming who we're becoming daily. And it looks like it does because we never disconnected from the places in which we were raised. And so that's always what comes through us. And yeah, it may sound weird. It may sound, weird is relative, but it may where some people like, I don't know what the fuck that is. That's fine. Just sit with it. Sit with it or don't.
Thank you for all of those answers. I appreciate each of them. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. It's still related to your writing. I don't know if there's any Pink Floyd fans in the house, but I'm in the middle of watching this documentary about Syd Barrett from Pink Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And a large part of the film discusses his mental state and how it impacted his creativity. So during the film, there's this discussion around the connection that exists between insanity and genius, and how some people need to more or less go through a breakdown to have a breakthrough. And I started to think about this concept in another way. You all rap about really hard stuff while living in a really hard world. And I imagine processing all of that and writing about it can make you go a little crazy sometimes. But do you think even when it feels unbearable, it's the only way that you'll get to the other side?
Good question. Very good question. I think so. I think so. I think, like just, yeah, getting it down, getting it out, talking to our brothers helps. And, it's the field in which we enjoy to play in. So, immediately, while you were saying that, I just thought about it like, man, there was a whole lot of like, God, I can't wait till they hear it. Talking about, spitting it, especially at that time, calling like Collasoul Structure in the middle of the night, going, yo, dog, I got some. It might be the most emotional shit, but I'm just like, Alan. Like, like in order to get to the side of that, I was like, you know what, still an MC about it. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm honest, like it's gonna sound crazy dramatic, but it's like it quite literally saved our lives though. If we couldn't get this stuff out, if we couldn't get these thoughts, these like feelings out on record, some of us might not be here. You know what I mean? Like we needed it. We needed each other. We still need each other. Yeah. It's literally life or death sometimes.
I think I could speak for all of us. This is music is very therapeutic to us. And I think I can speak for every artist that kind of just knows the woes and the trials and tribulations of being an artist, that if you didn't have this outlet to vent, we all know we low key crazy. Like we're low key crazy in our own respect. And so we'd probably be wilding out doing a lot of other different things that we probably shouldn't be doing if we didn't have music, if we didn't have this time to write, to vent these things out. So, some people go to therapy, and this was our therapy. This was our psychologist, to like speak to ourselves and really wrestle with the times. But I think when you're able to see the fruits of your labor, like I think all of us probably had a tear in our eye when we seen the vinyl of Salt. And when we seen that actually manifest, like we see that, like in my mind, I was like, yo, we deserve that. Like out of all the hard work that we did, out of all of the fights and the bloodshed and tears, like I think that when you're able to see the fruits of your labor, and really the fruits of the labor is going to be when we're back on stage with each other. That's really going to be the fruits of labor for me. Like the product is a tangible thing to give to somebody, and I love to get the love, but it's really about us, man. And so, for us to come together and create, another project like this, that is relieving to me. That lets me know that not only do we still got it and that we still love it, but we're still putting our footprint in this.
For sure, for sure. Like, yeah, that was a powerful moment when I saw that vinyl. I said, my goodness. And it's so many, I'm gonna come back to that. It's so many levels to that, to just what this writing means for us. There's not a verse on that record that's not personal. And this is why I was saying earlier, there's no difference between us and the verses. We ain't dressing ourselves up for y'all. That verse is just what you're gonna get, because that's who we are. It's raw, disturbing. Even my verse on Stains, I look back and that disturbs me. But it's like this is what happened. And for me, an artist in quotation should feel their most authentic when they're doing their art. That is the space, that's the Kairos moment in which time is no such thing as chronological time. Kind of like the scene, the juke joint scene in Sinners, where you see the globe converging in that one momentless moment. And I think that's what we do with our art. And on top of that, to go back to what Fokuz was saying about how all this struggle led to that vinyl, there's an interlude on Illogic Celestial Clockwork right after the song Celestial Clockwork, where there's this dialogue where this sound like a parent is telling their child, just accept that you just can't do it, and just that you're not be the best. You don't have what it takes. That literally summarizes what Chicago hip hop said to us. And we looked that dead in the eye and said, "Fuck you," I came from a dad who said, "Don't let nothing stop you." Here's the project you had right in your hand.
Brown skinned stranger with about 6'3". Walking past at a rapid speed. Do I speak cause he look like me? Not necessarily. If I deconstruct the obligation, the only reason we see ourselves as the same is colonization. Ingest that and throw it back up black. I didn't say that ingest, I meant it, and for that I've been attacked. We only got side to side with slave masters, juggle tribes, and even though we live as the aftershock, we forgot to collide. So I kept it, but I moved right past with no acknowledgement. You expecting the greeting proof slavery still needs abolishment. I toast a culture with a table of 7 continents. And you are viewed as my people, you see as astonishing. Look, it's not that we're not the same, it's not that we are the same, but this is playing chess with our skin color. While Jim Crow tear our family crest to the unrelated and worse, and somewhat eclipse the best. Be like the flesh you see, we do pre-Caucasus concepts.
All in all, I ain't gonna let this shit get to me like. All in all, I ain't gonna let this shit get to me like. All in all, I ain't gonna let this shit get to me like. All in all, I ain't gonna let this shit get.
There are 2 tracks on the album that I've been unable to separate in my mind. B-side Losers and Thoughts Most Intrusive. Again, this is just my perspective, but to me, both seem to be about perseverance in the face of adversity, albeit different sorts of adversity. B-sides Losers seems more to be about like the music industry wrestling with success or lack thereof. Thoughts More Intrusive, maybe about life more in general. I mean, the hook on that track, all in all, I ain't gonna let this shit get to me. And that hook is repeated in a way that almost sounds like deranged. Like I gotta hold on to this idea for dear life. It's kind of a spooky sounding song. It's got me wondering about like hope in your music. If you feel a responsibility to offer hope to listeners, or is it more of a responsibility about just offering a realistic perspective on things?
I mean, both. Like you got to be real about your situation. But if you don't think your situation can get better, then what the fuck are you doing? Things are tough, and you go through things, and you deal with things, and life does certain things just to laugh at you. And there's a lot of failure, there's a lot of triumph. But the one thing that is always supposed to be on the other side of it, outside of it, is you. And in which case, you just kind of have to, you have to endure. You also have to have fun while doing it, but you have to push through. So there just has to be some type of hope. It just doesn't have to look pretty, but it has to be there.
I think for me, the key word that he just said is you. And on Thoughts Most Intrusive, when I opened up that track, that my whole verse is about me battling myself. That's my whole verse. I'm just battling myself and battling my insecurities and questioning whether or not I have value or am I worth it, or am I the one that everybody is saying I am, So like it was literally like, yeah, I could battle you, but it can't even compete to the battle that I have with myself. Like that's the ultimate battle. So like that was how I approached my verse and Thoughts Most Intrusive.
I gotta say, it's very hard not to be a realist. You know what I mean? Naturally, I think me and IB with Gyroscope, we definitely portray more of like an optimistic approach to our music. Everything's a lot more hopeful, a lot more positive, sometimes even like aggressively positive. I think with Tomorrow Kings, like it is the most raw, most like unaltered story you're gonna hear. Sometimes it ends bad. Sometimes it ends okay, you know what I mean? But it's going to be a natural, authentic story. It's always going to be, point A, B, C. It might end terrible. It might end great, but it's like, like this is what actually happens. These are like real adult men, black men going through things. Sometimes we don't come out the other side. And sometimes we do. But like I think again, it's about like responsibility. Like I have to tell you the truth. I can't lie about it. I can't make up a story. I've tried to like make up like fake stories with writing and with like songs all my life, and I can't do it. I have to talk about what I actually went through. It's a weird thing, but it has to be like what I actually did.
Yeah, it's totally about the truth, you know. And I think, of course, we can say, well, we have our own truths, but truths converge because of our shared ancestries, our shared upbringings in the South Side of Chicago. There are various things that amalgamate when we tell our stories, and that's why I think this works. I know in terms of like what I wrote on B-side losers and on thoughts most intrusive, it kind of revolves around just working stuff out. And when I work stuff out, that doesn't necessarily mean like Collasoul was saying that there's a happy ending, because most times a lot of things you work out just doesn't work. So I mean, I really in those verses was trying to capture a quandary, because and I think the ways in which we describe things, they can be so dystopian, they could be so dilapidated, they can be so all of that, that there is no choice but to hope after that. Because if this is what the world is, if we're authentically conveying the way the world is becoming instantaneously, then are you going to just leave it like that, or are you going to do something about it? So a lot of what I do, it's intentionally about disassembling and leaving it there. Like, now you go fix it.
Mm.
It was a line. It's really his first line, Colossal's first line. I'm trying to feed my daughter with this rap money. And like that, out of the whole song, like that verse resonates with me because, you know, if you're familiar just with the concept of like the starving artist concept, like we felt that in so many levels, right? You tear down shows, you know that you are the elite, and yet you don't have a manager, you don't have a business plan, you don't have, you know, the infrastructure of a team that's outside of the professionalism of just writing the music, you know. And so now who do you lean upon? And so now we got to lean upon each other to book shows and to, you know, come up with like, what does our press release look like? And, you know, knock on doors of our friends and say, hey, can you do a photo shoot for us? Like, we never really had the infrastructure of a team to say, okay, you all do what you all do best, and we're going to do everything else to get you where you need to go. And we just never had that, you know. And I know that even dealing with us is tough because you got all of these egos, you got all of these, like, you know, aggressive guys that, you know, are very particular about their art, you know. And sometimes we don't agree and sometimes we do agree. So you know, when I heard that line, I'm just trying to feed my daughter with this rap money, it has so many layers in him saying that, because it's pain behind that, it's challenging in itself with that, it's the expectations that you have for yourself, and it's also the sobering moment of like where I'm at now. Like N.R.T.M, Colossal didn't have a daughter, you know what I mean? And now he has a daughter, you know, so it's just like that growth as well. And that goes into the whole conglomerate of the project, just like all of the density of our maturity, of like the perspective of how we see things now versus like, you know, the whole world was an oyster at that time, you know? So um that was a layer verse for me. I never told him that, but that hit home for me.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
So as we've been establishing in our conversation thus far, the writing on Salt is just incredible. I've read and reread the lyric book, and like good storytelling does, your writing has made me see things from different perspectives, and sometimes those perspectives change the more I dig into what you've written. You know, we're talking about music interpretation, and I've often wondered about writers and whether or not they have similar experiences to their listeners, right? Like, how are you interpreting your music, you know, after you've had the chance to sit with it? it kind of reminds me, not to skip ahead, but it kind of reminds me of The Only Constant when Illogic says, as the one telling the story, I have the right to ad lib. It's called change. So, do you sometimes have revelations or find new or deeper meaning in your lyrics when you revisit what you've written?
Oh, every time,
Yes.
every single time. I know my verse on The Devil Woke Up Early. I still listen to it right now, and I'm like, man, I was really just talking about myself, um, and like terrible eating habits, and I'm still like suffering from it now because my weight has like fluctuated for years. But like that verse kind of haunts me because I'm like, man, I mean, it's too late now. I can't edit any of it, but I was like, if it feels a little harsh to me now, and I'm just like, damn, like, it needed to be said. It's like, yes, I love soul food. Yes, I love like those big hearty meals, and I'm like, it's literally killing me, probably. You know what I mean? And there's so many lines in there, and I was like, damn. Like I talk about like the hot sauce bottle and how like, oh, you're gonna live with it and die with it. At the same time, you're gonna take it with you to the casket, kind of thing. Because so much salt in that, so much salt intake at once. But yeah, there's so many verses on that album, like from everybody that I think about later, and I was like, fuck, like what did he mean? And then now I get it later, but I'm like, he probably meant something completely different, but I took this from
Hmm.
it. But yeah.
So there's one line on No Brands. Well, no, there's a couple lines on No Brands that actually evolved over the years. Where I go, I left the ethic in the casket where my friends live. It happens that defended a scar garnered from living out someone else's happy ending. Between then and now, I had two more friends die. At that time, I was talking about like two homies of mine that had gotten murdered some years back. And, just how it affects like how I handle things. And since then, we lost our boy Jason. I lost my homie Cram. And now listening to it and listening to that, like it just kind of attention kind of builds when I hear that.
Mm.
And how I just have compromised less in life since then. So just sitting with the album, like especially given the time between when we wrote it and when it came out, so much of it, because there's a subconscious element to what you write. So much of it, you know, see, made sense and locked together now with where my life is going and where the world's gone. Like, seems like I knew I was kind of articulating something that I saw on the horizon, even though I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to develop. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think another one for me is actually on the song Canned, which is about addiction, alcoholism. And when I first wrote the verse, I really tried to, because man, we was wilding out back in the day. We was wilding out. We had some wild moments. And so I was thinking about all of those moments where, it was uncontrollable. It was just like you binged until you couldn't binge no more. And then I reflect back now to like my grandmother that I never met, that changed form because of alcoholism, and just like the binging that's in my family, you know what I'm saying? And like, and how that may have it affected me, you know what I'm saying? Just as far as in my tendencies. And it might not just be alcoholism. And again, it's related to salt, right? And it's related to what Collasoul just said. Like, we're addicted to the foods, we're addicted to, and now we're addicted to reels and addicted to our phones and addicted to so much stuff. And we don't realize how much it desensitizes us, how much it's killing us mentally, internally. Like the first verse, I said, still trying to escape, finding temperance on the taste bud. Benching on that, I could take another if you make one. The odyssey of witnessing my soul just withering and wavering. So it's just like, you see it yourself. Like you see your wavering. You see how it's like, it's breaking you down, but yet you're like, okay, if you offer it to me, I might accept it. And
Mm.
so I think where I am now, even when I look back at that, is the self-discipline that I've been building, right? The self-discipline and the intentionality of being uh centered in what I know I need to do, despite if somebody's going to offer me something, because it's a choice, right? It's you know, the devil woke up early today is like, hey, like the devil can offer you something, but you got to be a willing participant, you know. And as I know, the devil is in all of us. So, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up can focus because as you're talking about learning something about what you've written after you wrote it. I didn't really even write about addiction, but I was writing about addiction. And because I have a line where I says in that verse, they say be who you are, but how when the question who am I can never be answered. Killing that shit is the ad lib there. But I'm I'm talking about an addiction to what we've been told to call ourselves or what we've been told who we are. And Focus and I, we talk about this a lot. We're doing some work on this in the new Advent record. He's further more advanced and more science than I am, but I pull from that and various other around multiplicity and identity, and I'm asking the question: well, when we call ourselves Black, Latinx, Hispanic, Native American, etc., whose being are we ingressing in? Who are we trying to be? Did we create those categories? And does following those categories assure that we are authentic? And does it take us away from that? So I was playing with those ideas in that verse, and that's for me has been an ongoing thing where I'm always very critical of the categories which many times we're very sure of. Gender categories, religious affiliation, various types of identities. Who told us we're that? Who really examined it? And so what I'm getting across in that verse is not an admonition for people to do that, but it's me showing myself doing that.
In the press material for the album, there's a quote from Ill Subliminal. Speaking of the album, he says, "There's an unmistakable feeling of isolation that is difficult to avoid." And this seems to be the result of the project, as you guys have mentioned, largely being written during the height of the pandemic. But still, it had me wondering about isolation because it's interesting to hear music made by a 6-person crew, like described this way. It's easy to assume, I think, that because y'all are a group that such isolation would not be a part of the dynamic. But it's made me wonder if recording as a group might lend itself to isolation in unexpected ways. I'm wondering if y'all would say that has been the case for you.
I know in this project, I'll say it was, I guess we were all isolated, but some more than others. Like I spent months in an apartment by myself in New York. So the beginning of the record was me with nobody, just annoying the members of Tomorrow Kings with new verses. And just, mulling over a lot because there's a lot of music that we wrote that didn't make this album also. That's probably going to come out. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot happened at this time. In which case, yeah, like, there was a love isolation. And El Subliminal, me and him talked a lot because he was in Rhode Island at the time. And I was in New York. And at one point, we were just, we were both, kind of in similar situations, so to speak. So, there's a level there. Can't speak fully for him nor everybody else, but I know that there was a certain amount of it just because of COVID. A whole lot of being within yourself because you didn't have outside stimulus. You had information being dumped into you at all points, but you could barely touch grass. You couldn't do much. So, yeah.
The way it resonates for me, I was the one that had a child first out of the crew, and now I got 5 children, and I'm been married the whole time being with TK, and so my writing space and time, like I've written with Collasoul plenty of times. I've written with Sketch. We've written together as a crew, But if it's not that, majority of the time I'm writing in isolation. I'm locking my door. I'm telling my children to go upstairs, leave me alone, let me get in my world, in my space. Because if they're like all around, then I can't jump into that space. I can't jump into that world. And so I'm isolating myself from my family. I'm isolating myself from everything so I can create this world. And I'm a pacer. Like I don't even sit down. Like I gotta like walk back and forth and like literally perform the lyrics because like in my mind, if I can't perform this on stage, it don't feel right. So like I gotta feel like I'm already performing the lyrics as they're manifesting in real time. So that could get disrupted if I'm not isolated, if I'm not amongst like-minded individuals that give me that type of energy. So that's how I resonate with that quote.
Yeah. I mean, this was the first album that we made where everyone lived in a different place. N.R.T.M, I think Sketch, you had already left. And then John, I think you had left, moved
And
away.
N.R.T.M, I
Sketch was
left.
there for that.
I left right after the release. I left
You left
6
right
months.
after that. So we
6
were
months
like,
after the release.
mostly in the same room in creation for N.R.T.M. We saw each other almost literally every day. We went on tour the following year, so we were with each other. After that, it had been years since anybody was able to like visit each other and see each other in person. So we were like isolated from one another, but created that album as if we were in the same room somehow. Like, it took a lot because everyone was going through their own form of like depression, and everyone was isolated not only from other people, but just like, from the brothers in the crew. So I know for sure, like, it was driving me absolutely nuts to not be in the same room and bounce ideas off of them. Being on the phone is cool, but it's like to be in the room with the guy that you make the best art possible with, not being able to do that was really hard. And we really wanted to make something dynamic and something like just like life change. And it's hard to do that when you like, hey man, I'm like screaming downstairs, hey y'all, I need to record, stop talking. And then I'm like, wait, let me record this. Let me call Sketch. He can't pick up. I'm like, God damn it. Like, you know what I mean? You're like going nuts. And you're like, it's just me creating this thing. I need them. I need them. I couldn't have them there with me. You know what I mean? It was tough. It was crazy.
Yeah, the isolation thing. It was an interesting thing for me. Yeah, in various ways because I'm an introvert, I guess by quote unquote nature. So that part was cool. Even though the circumstances in which it happened, I lost two aunts and two uncles within the space of like 5 months. I lost my grandmother during that time, and I was living in Mexico full time at that period, so I wasn't really in Chicago. I didn't make any of those funerals, and I was popping in and out from here and there to check on my parents, but I didn't see nobody. It's just well in because I was trying to be around people as little as possible. But what that did afford is I got a lot of recording done, writing, a lot of recording, and a lot of what I did for Salt. Yeah, it was just because literally you're around the house the whole day, and you just have time, and you could I mean talking a whole. Actually, I mean, we was zooming. Everybody, we had Zoom meetings. We got together, just brainstorm, shared what we were working on, and that afforded us the possibility to do the record the way we did. It would have happened in some other ways if that didn't occur, but the ways in which it happened marked the record itself. So when people hear it, have that in mind, but the record wouldn't sound like that if that wasn't what was going on.
A recurring thing for me on Salt is an examination of how relationships and connections to people, places, and things can really impact identity and bring it into question. As I've been listening to the album and interpreting it in this way, it's reminded me of a book that I started to read called A Sky Full of Elephants. If you don't know it, it's about Black people who suddenly find themselves living in a world without white people. and then having to redefine themselves in this new reality. So I've just sort of wondered about this in regards to your writing. You all have said it, you feel like it's really important and necessary to write about your truths and write about who you are in the world that you're living in. But I also wondered if like there's ever a draw because you have the power, the pen is in your hand to capture yourself in an alternative freer existence in terms of who you could be and who you want to be in a freer world.
Hmm. Oh wow. You know what? We approached that on the first record actually. Robert Davis and the Robots.
Yeah.
Like probably my favorite song on there. I'm not even on it. It's Ill Subliminal. Wizard Jenkins at the time said his verse starts with going to an alternate universe to see a better version of me. And everybody on the track kind of talks about, I guess not necessarily positive. Colossal, I don't want to quote, but like alternate take that we would have done, like like alternate lives we would have had. And like at least for me, that's like the biggest example of it. That I have. Like, oh wow, that's a good question. That's I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, just to put more context on it, like, are you ever challenged by being pulled in that direction? Like, are you ever balancing the two worlds, right? Like, really being able to capture who you are through your lyricism and through your music versus like having the ability to create your own sort of universe, right? Like, I think that that's part of what makes art so powerful because it's yours and you can imagine it however you want it to be. That makes sense?
Okay, yeah, no, in that respect, I guess we definitely do. We definitely do create our own universe, like our music does. Like even though it's grounded in reality, have a certain level of world building in the language and the approach and the way we paint pictures and like city that we from always looks insanely big and very small at the same time. You know, like we're talking about the secret parts and the very public parts, simultaneously. And same for the world at large, where like, yeah, like, if you listen to the record front to back, you have, I'd imagine, as one of the writers, like you have full scope of version of America. It's not exactly the America that you see outside, because it's interpreted through our lenses, but it's a real world, so to speak. So yeah, definitely there's definitely a lot of universe building with it. So that's the easiest way to articulate our feelings and thoughts
Hmm.
at the same time.
I think like what's also important too is that there's a certain context that not just us, but a lot of what goes on in the sphere of rap music right now is building because I think that the works in which we're creating they are contributing to a world that's being built that, like Sketch said, is a real world. A
Hmm.
lot of our associates they tap in, come to these shows, they do tap into that who follow the music and then imagine what they're going out and doing in the world and taking their own spin on some things that we've done and vice versa because everything is reciprocal, I think. So there is a back and forth between, and I also think that this destabilizing is the new world that you're referencing could be built on. In the same way that like that at the level of quantum physics, things rules are broken that don't make sense on higher levels. But if there was not that subatomic level, what exists in the world that we are kind of perceiving with the senses wouldn't exist.
Hmm.
And we do a bunch of rule breaking. We've always done that. We have our own language.
Yeah.
We have our own references. We have our own concepts, and those are worlds that are very real.
That's very true.
I see it kind of twofold with your question. I think on a broader level with the crew and what our impact was versus like me personally, right? And so like as a crew, and it's kind of emphasizing what Gilead said and what we said earlier, when we were together as a crew, when we formed as a crew on the Chicago scene, and obviously that's not the only scene we were at, but just like when we was present on the Chicago scene, it was felt. It was felt. And when we performed, when people heard our music and what it sounded like with us together, I think it shifted the current. And this is before N.R.T.M's dropped, right? It was more of industrial music, post-industrial music, and we was just like really like shifting the current of what the status quo was. And then when we dropped N.R.T.M, I think that shifted the current more nationally and internationally from like when people heard that project. I know a lot of people switched up their pens. They switched up their approach. They was like, okay, I could take it there. And that's the same thing for us of like the project that we're going to talk about it and other projects that we're going to talk about that shifted it for us. Like when we heard, like when I heard Cold Vein from Cannibal Ox, I was like, oh, I can do,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of different projects that did that for us. So I know that as Tomorrow Kings, we created this alternate reality that we dreamed that manifest into a reality for other people to say, okay, I can do that. And so it's a lot of individuals that might not even give us credit to this day, but we sort of kind of put that battery in their back to show them that it existed, right? And so I think that's from a broad standpoint. I think for me personally, though, and not to go too in depth, but like I know personally for me, I was ever evolving like everybody else in the crew. Like when NRTM dropped, that was 1 year after me proclaiming my nationality as a Moorish American Muslim. So like my thought process, even in the industrial space leading up to NRTM, that was ever evolving where you'll hear my verse even in Black Power and Hell, where I'm talking about that stuff. Like, and I was actually challenged by the crew on that verse because I wrote like an 8 bar verse and they was like, Focus, that's not good enough. You know exactly what you need to touch on. And so I was like, okay, so that's what made that verse expand to what it was at that time. So and now, I'm an officer in my temple. I'm more embedded in that space. At the same time, still carrying the torch with Tomorrow King, still doing gyroscope, still being a father, still being a husband. So like a lot of those things have evolved so much from when we was just ripping and running the streets and tearing down venues to now, it's a reality of the battle of staying in tune with what you love, but also becoming the man that you are.
Hmm.
And I think that has been a balancing act for me.
Hmm.
I couldn't have said any of that any better. So y'all said it for sure.
Everything changes, we stray from the predictable towards our own destiny, built upon original concepts to listen to two ill individuals born to score. Everything changes, we stray from the predictable towards our own destiny, built upon original concepts to listen to two ill individuals born to score. I'm stuck between a mic and a hard place, battling the space-time continuum for control of my destiny, traveling close to innuendos of lethargy, hardly noticing I've been waiting for that stop sign to change green. Pardon me, I borrow a spoonful of sugar to help my medicine stay down, drown my problems in weed smoke to alter reality, found a way to stay on top of things, use my ego as a stepladder, sound foolproof cause no man has the balls to make the step shadow. This image in memory, brush strokes of symmetry, with masters in alienation, conquered anonymity, stand as a friend to me, then instantly stretch words across tracks and distaste in my act to explore rap without understanding the facts. Simply, I'm sick of humans. I only answer to an angel, so the rest of you can deep throat the shaft on which you dangle. I don't mean to be lewd, but they're just constantly under my skin. Then again, when I'm open, I usually invite them in. Though we're on a different page, I'll bless the stage after I vomit. My time is soon to come, cause change is the only constant.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to talk about Illogic. So every episode, we spend the second half of the show talking about a hip-hop album chosen by our guests. And today we're going to be talking about Celestial Clockwork by Illogic. So I'm always curious when we have a group on, how did y'all decide on this album?
The easy one to choose from for us would have been Cold Vein because we all collectively absolutely love Cold Vein, right? But we were like, that's too easy. People would kind of expect it from us, I think. So I think it was either me or a sketch. We were like, oh, how about Celestial Clockwork from
It
Illogic?
was,
Because we all can agree that that album affected us.
it was Gilead
Yes.
7.
It was
Gilead
good.
7. Yeah, Gilly.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, because I was leaning towards Cobain. It is like, what about Celestial Clockwork? And it's just like, good point. That's
You're
a
right.
good point.
You're right.
Yeah, this record. Oh my, and see, okay, and this is sort of a an architectology comment. Shout out to Rubber Room, the gods who actually inspired a lot of us as well. So this is architecture of Tomorrow King. So there are records that bring Tomorrow Kings together. Cold Vein is one. I probably would say Float by Aesop. I also and this is a big one. I mean, Celestial Clockwork's a huge one, and I mean, all of us have different connections to it, and we all were just moved in a crazy way. Because that's one thing, I was a part of being crew. It's like, well, these records are the ones that are moving us. What can we do that doesn't recreate that, but builds off the inspiration to do our own thing? So the Celestial Clockwork blew all of our minds.
You're talking about Cannibal Ox, and it's interesting because today I was like doing research on this album and just kind of listening to different interviews and stuff like that. And I was said to myself, like, I wish somebody would just make like a hip hop family tree and just show all the different connections that people have with one another, because there are so many different connections, and like,
Yeah.
and that is very true with like Illogic and the people that he was in community with. But it's interesting, I heard him say today when he did his release show for Unforeseen Shadows, he was naming the lineup, and Vordel and Vast were there and part of the lineup before they were even Cannibal Ox. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, so it's all, my point is that it's all sort of related. It's all underneath that family tree.
Hence being Time Capsule, where you got Aesop and Vass on one of the tracks.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like literally at that time, like
Stan.
everybody's favorite like indie underground MC was on that record.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Slugs, I forget that Slug was on that. They did a back and forth on there.
Yeah, that whole father son thing, that was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
That was insane.
yeah, this was a crazy one because I'd been at this point following Illogic for 5 years. And so I'd been looking at I remember that show, seeing the pictures, like
Wow.
the scan pictures that they did from that show, and it was back when, like, before Cannibal Rocks and like different groupings of them. Like there was a group called Up and Away. There was this group called Drown that was there. Like, it's seeing that all that time and watching Celestial Clockwork come out, and it seemed to me like the last entry of first like wave of these guys finally starting to get their flowers. It's 2004, so
Yeah.
Labor Days it came out, Cobain it came out. That lyrics had come out by Logic, but it was a great album, one of my favorites. But Celestial Clockwork seemed like the actual entry into the canon of that rap style. That era from Illogic and Blueprint.
Yes.
Yes. It had all the MCs on it, and it just had the declarative statements that, Labor Day is a fantastic damage head and all that.
Right. It was so multifaceted. That was some of the greatest writing of the 2000s period. That was by far. I mean, you're talking about 1,000 Whispers. I teach philosophy, and I give that to my students to listen to. Like, let's just think about what he's saying here. Let's just go through this record. I mean, it's that. I also played the title track, and I said, what's going on here? And I just throw it out there. Like, it's just so much there.
I'm so glad you said that, because in the notes that I took, I put one of the first things I put is this record feels so philosophical to me. Like, I just find myself listening to it, thinking about the questions that he's asking, like thinking about the way he's phrasing things. It's just so groundbreaking to me in that way. Like the way that he has, like, the writing is just phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
Even like the story,
Absolutely.
even like the storytelling for like first trimester, like
Yeah.
Yes.
stupid, stupid.
Yeah.
Very precise, very detailed, very
Right.
technical. He's extremely technical.
Hmm.
Like honestly, like you can teach a class about technique just based off that album from Illogic. Period. Like his voice. Actually, well, you know what's funny? Me and I don't know if I ever told you this, but like I definitely tried to mirror my voice after Blueprint and Illogic. For sure.
Wow.
Every
Interesting.
time I hear Blueprint speak on this record, and even on like Got Lyrics, I was like, I
Yeah.
wanted to sound like him. He always sounded like a ring announcer to me every time he spoke.
Yeah.
I always wanted to really like
Better say
command
your
attention
Uncle
that way.
White Castle.
Yeah,
Well,
stupid.
it's funny you talk about technique because I think when you talk about like the Aesop Rocks of the world, even Vass in his prime, and I'm specifically talking about like that prime of like Cannibal Ox, Illogic, Slug, especially like Slug when you're talking about like Lucy Ford and stuff like that, Overcast, like
Hmm.
the technique and the approach of how they did things, like I didn't appreciate it as much as I was inspired by it in the beginning until I realized like how I had to master my craft recording. Because like just the way that you articulate words and the way that you use inflections and the way that you create moments, and then just like the vocabulary of how you're piecing these words together to create this feeling, this world, this imagery. It's so much technique in that I think is overlooked outside of the technique of like, maybe from a commercial standpoint,
Hmm.
this is how you make a hit. This is how you do this, particularly versus the strategicness of what Aesop was doing and what Slug was doing at that time. It was very, very crafty as far as what Illogic accomplished on this project.
Isn't that
Right.
so? Yeah. Go ahead, Gilead.
I was just gonna say real quick, because even going back to that whole concept of technique, if you listen to Aesop's verse, and this I was a lot with Aesop stuff, and Logic in certain points, you can hear the punch ins. The punch ins weren't because they didn't have breath control. The punch ins were to paint a certain picture. And you're saying, okay, well, if this line overlaps here, then those two pictures will collide and it's going to sound a certain way. That's all technique.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember Vaz mentioning they all were obsessed with Slick Rick's way of recording
That's crazy.
because he always did a lot of punches,
Mm-hmm.
but they were calculated.
well,
Right.
You know?
I thought a lot about vocabulary when I was listening to this record, just like the word choice. I wish I had written down some examples, but like there's a line where he's communicating like I couldn't find the words, couldn't get myself to say it, but he says voice box. I couldn't get my voice box to say it or something like that.
Hmm.
And I just remember thinking like voice box, such an interesting choice of like words to use in that moment. And he does that throughout the record in a way that I think contributes to like the philosophical feel.
Hmm.
But also sets him apart, like sets him apart as far as voice and technique are concerned.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
They actually remind me a lot of Ghostface and Ray, honestly. Like
Mm.
in some ways creating his own like language by the words that he's choosing.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was one thing that those guys always appreciated. Like there was a concerted effort to figure out the other way to say something.
Yeah.
Like sure, you could say it this way, and every other rapper says it that way. Who's gonna remember that?
Right.
What makes you creative for doing that? And like Logic was very big on like switching it or using a very technical term for a thing, or like describing the object instead of saying the object and using that in place of it and things like that. And that was always dope about him. And that was something that I think him and all the other guys in the orphanage were really good at.
Oh yeah, they were super great with that. I mean, because even a good example of that is when is like when he said on 1,000 Whispers, if need be, I can get raw, just pocket the latex. asking why the man with no legs crawled to see the apex.
What? If a picture's worth 1,000 words, I'll paint 1,000 pictures to symbolize the decibel levels, bred of 1,000 whispers. To mummify useless, unknown poems, spitters shower with gold glitter, pressure increase, unleash the catacomb splitters. And for some reason, you wonder why your puzzle is a jigsaw. When you fail to decipher the Morse code to simply avoid the pitfalls. If need be, I can get raw, just pocket the latex. But that's like asking why the man with no legs crawls to see the apex, or why the unplanted seeds won't blossom into a garden. Parallel to your search for stardom, where you leave breadcrumbs and jargon that you can't even feel. So how's that for surface tension? Every step shows you a worthless henchman itching to meet your maker. I'd rather finger paint than take a tainted pen and curse the paper. Voice box turns cauldron, saliva boils, then thoughts of vapor. See a foremost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Then a thoroughbred's accuracy isn't the focal point of perfection. Therefore, you trudge through waist-high sludge and caramelized paints where prints left taint every breath in hell.
Hard. Oh my gosh.
Or if what's the line we said of if science and religion was the
Building blocks for lab stock.
And
the foundation will crumble for the epicenter of the
aftershock.
I was like, God damn it. I was like, whoa.
He was really going off.
Yeah.
The entire song.
No, when I heard stuff like that, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta step it up.
Yeah.
I can't come with anything. Like that really made me put my lab coat on. Listening to like I had to put my lab coat on. So that's the standard. And we always lived by that standard. So like no matter if it's 2025, like it was always the standard. And the standard was not relative to the current trend. The standard was the technique. The standard was the philosophy. The standard was the integrity of pushing the envelope. And so no matter what year we're in, we're going to always adapt to the standard of bringing it to life.
Right, exactly. That standard is it just goes so far. Because, I mean, even as a philosopher, I mean, he covers notions of relativity and the only constant. He talks about ethics in the first trimester. He talks about metaphysics and philosophy of religion, and I wish he could make me. I mean, he talks about aesthetics, the value of interesting ideas, which Whitehead talks about in Process and Reality. He talks about, like, everything. And it's like, well, as a writer, like Fokuz is saying, okay, I want to be able to do my own version of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
He did it with impeccable flow.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Like smooth delivery. It's so crazy how many words he has packed into each verse, but he delivers it incredibly smooth.
It's pocketed.
Yes, pocketed. Like it's insane. It's actually really, really, really scary shit. Like how are you able to actually do this? You know?
A really big influence.
It's like what you said, E, when you was trying to like say the line to auctioning, right? and I'm not bringing that up to get at you. I'm saying
no, it's fine.
It's like welcome to our world, because we be in the lab like trying to figure out like how can I conform this word to sense in the pocket where the flow is still on point, breath control is still right, it still hits right. Like we're doing all of that technique that I think gets overlooked a lot, you know?
For me, like this is an example, like what you're talking about is what it is. It is an example of like how there's so much genius in hip hop, the skill that it takes to deliver lyrics like this on this project, like in the way that he's doing it. Like not everybody can do that. I mean, I know everybody thinks they can now, but like not everybody can do that. And it really is something that, I don't know, it's just, what IB was saying earlier about just like, commercial hip hop and the way that things are marketed and celebrated, and the way that we look at genius in this culture, like it's so skewed sometimes, because I don't know, I think about an album like this and I'm like, why the fuck don't people talk about it more? Like, why isn't this an album that's on every list or whatever? Like, why is this not something that people are talking about every single day?
It's because people don't want to think that hard. It's too dense.
Well,
People are literally afraid to listen to an album that you would have to read. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
And to be real, I know like a lot of us were doing shows this time. G7 can attest to it. Like I hate to say it, like at that point in indie hip hop, he didn't have a complexion for it.
Mm.
It was a very
Yeah,
whitewashed moment. Like a lot of the heroes at that moment, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault.
Right.
You know, they were champion because of their talent. They were pedestaled because of their image.
Mm,
And Illogic and Blueprint didn't exactly get that same attention.
That's right.
that's
And they're
fair.
from a
That's fair.
and they're from Columbus, Ohio, which is a
mm.
small city.
Yeah.
Produced an incredibly large amount of good rappers and producers.
Yeah.
But once again, it's a small town, and it wasn't sexy to talk about them.
Mm,
It was a tougher sell for some people. How great
Right.
it was. It made Celestial Clockwork, I think, was probably his most successful record. But
Yeah.
he did get overlooked by his friends. Well,
He
they
did.
didn't overlook them. The people who talked about them would rather talk about like one-offs from them than full projects from him in the same way.
Right.
If I'm getting it wrong, Illogic, I'll apologize to you. We'll get a chance to talk about it. But being a fan of that at that time, that's what it felt like. And that's what it felt like when I tried to play it for people.
If I could say this too, like I think when you talk about timeless music, right, and timeless moments, the thing that I think you don't think about as the artist is that you're going to affect consumers they're not ready for your music now, but they might be ready for your music later, right? And so like I wasn't there when Aesop dropped Float, right? But I was there to receive it after years of it being dropped, right? And so I probably didn't even like I was downloading so much music. I probably didn't even know Celestial Music came out 2004. I probably thought it came out in early 2000s like Kel Vane. But I didn't care because now this is something else I could lose myself in. So I think about like I remember I don't know if you all are familiar with Typical Cats here in Chicago, but Quasar I spoke to Quasar and I told Quasar, I was like, look, Walk Through Walls is amazing. Like that album is amazing. And he was like, man, where the hell was you at?
Yeah. Well, we were like much younger.
Yeah,
Yo,
yeah,
y'all
but,
was younger.
Yeah.
We were
but
much younger.
it's to paint that picture. Like sometimes you drop projects and it's so ahead of its time at that moment.
yeah.
People was not ready to receive it, but that doesn't discredit how brilliant the project is. And so
Sure.
20 years later, like I will hope that like even with N.R.T.M and Salt, like people years down the line, they're like, yo, like this affected me. So like I that was something I had to realize later down the line that like I received a lot of stuff late. Like even with Nas, I wasn't there for Illmatic, but I heard Illmatic when I.M came out and I had to catch up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually glad you brought up Quasar, because I think there are definite parallels between him and Illogic. I'm actually telling a Illogic story real quick too. But Quasar, what I learned from him is something I learned from Illogic. Because if you listen to Walk Through Walls, and even a song like It Don't Stop on the first typical Cats record, like every line is a picture in itself. But I said I need to write lines where at least every bar has at least one concrete picture in it, if not more than that. But at least, because if not, all you're doing is just talking aimlessly. And the ways in which they both were able to kind of, and I mean, Illogic does that in so many places in this. I mean, really, every line is so vivid. You could see it, But yeah, but I want to say this must have been like 2016, and shout out to Dan Berliner, who goes by Wolf Langus, dope ass MC who is from the East Coast, but he's been in San Francisco for a long time, and he used to run a place called the Honey Hive Gallery. It was like the go-to spot for indie hip hop in NorCal for a long time. Me and the homie Phantom Threat, we used to run an event out of there every month. But one day I get a call from Dan, and Dan's like, "Yeah, Illogic's in town. Can you set some stuff up for him?" Cal at the time, I was closer to LA, and so he gave me the call and says, "Can you set up some stuff?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll make something happen." So we played 3 shows, and I got to actually chill with this guy. And it was just because I'm thinking, Willie, I've told you this before. I told you this before. I'm like, I was wondering what kind of person he was gonna be, because I'm like, you know what, sometimes you meet your idols and they're not the nicest people. Yeah, that was so not the case with him. He was just the most humble and chill dude, And I remember, because I have a whole bunch of family in LA, and he was crashing in my crib for me, and I borrowed a blow-up mattress from my cousin, and I played 1,000 Whispers for my cousin, and I had him in the car, and my cousin wasn't feeling the track. Months later is when he came down, and I'm like, guess what? The guy who wrote 1,000 Whispers is actually in my car. And my cousin was like, so? Like,
Hey,
you fucking asshole. Like,
hey, your cousin was bugging. Cousin was bugging.
He was totally bugging. He was totally bugging. Shout out to Brandon. I'm gonna call his name Brandon. Shout out to you. You won't blast.
Your cousin
Damn,
is bugging
man.
the fuck out, dude.
That's rough. Before we go, I think we should definitely talk about the production at least a little bit. It is fucking incredible. I mean, Blueprint, man. Oh my God.
Still one of my faves.
Yeah.
Still.
He did an incredible job with this record.
Sample choices.
I know sample choices. His drums need to get more respect too. Like his drums are the only constant.
Yeah.
His ability to use space. This was a very maximalist time in like underground stuff, in a lot of respects. But you'll get a song like Time Capsule, which is a really sparse beat, but it's the perfect beat for those rappers.
Right.
And it gave them the exact amount of space needed to show the things that make their rap style special.
Right.
It's kind of, muted drums, like sample just lurks in and out.
I would say like Blueprint, obviously El Producto, they influenced me a lot as a producer. It's just as far as like the beats that I was making for like my solo projects, like the All Things Paintbrush around that time, Spitting Glands, but like just really experimenting and creating those type of canvases for me to draw on. And so I really thought about that when I heard Celestial Clockwork, because actually I haven't listened to Celestial Clockwork in a while. So I played it again this morning just to catch myself back up, because I used to have it on repeat. And when I listened to it and I was listening to the production, I'm like, man, this was really like the space I was in when I was like making beats and like looking for the type of beats I wanted at that time. So, yeah.
Big shout out to Blueprint, because we actually rapped over a Blueprint beat, by the way. Shout out to us for doing that. Lifelong
He's the
dream.
Curly Castro too.
Yeah, shout out to Curly Castro for getting us on that joint. But Blueprint has to be the most fearless dude on the planet to use the most like unmistakable sample of all time.
Yep.
No.
For 1,000 Whispers.
Yep.
And like I don't know, didn't they like shelve the album because of that sample? Like I think he ran into some trouble because of that. They couldn't be on streaming for a while too.
Sounds about right. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised.
But listen, everyone knows The Who, right?
Yep.
So to be bold enough to use that sample and be like, I'm gonna make a masterpiece with it, it's completely fearless. It's brave as fuck. Like it's a beautiful song.
And, what's also crazy about that is that he doesn't chop the sample. He doesn't do anything. He just layers it with those drums and that warm bass line, and that's all he needs to do. With that, I'm not, and I say all. I mean, he did everything.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa,
cinematic, man.
And can I add one more thing? If y'all, My World is a song that really needs more respect. Like, that kind of changed the way that changed a way part of my MCing when I heard that.
Mm.
Like it was like a perfect like chorus sample combination. And it was something that Illogic has done on multiple albums where he dips into like, what he's going through mentally.
Yeah.
And it was something that like, we champion motherfuckers for like DMX, who I love, for doing a half-ass version of it, and other guys like that. But like Illogic has spent a good amount of time delving within, like talking about self in a way a lot of people wouldn't do because of just the amount of innate posturing that we have in a lot of rap music. Sure, it's more common nowadays, but he might be one of the reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
To be honest. And My World is a
Yeah.
good example of that.
That's real. And even like the hidden track.
Yeah.
That hidden track too. I don't even know what it's called, but just the stuff he was saying, you don't need a gas mask to catch your breath between this and the next masterpiece. Like
like he knew it, right?
like right. He's amazing. Shout out to Illogic. Shout out to Blueprint, because that combination, because it's something that I've been thinking about, but just the notion of records that age well. That's one that ages super well.
Yeah.
I think another joint is Live to Die. That was like just the production, did on the production. Like that was stuff I inspired to when I heard that. I was like, okay. Like that was another standard where I was like, okay.
You say life could be a setback and death could be depression. It was just like such a very, very grim song, and like the soundscape for it, like with the organs. I'm like, this is a Hitchcock joint. Like this is crazy. It's interesting.
Hollow Shell. That's my joint.
Beautiful.
The super
That's it.
beat.
Yeah.
That's it.
Very weird beat.
Very weird.
Very
beat.
weird.
I love it.
That jazz bit.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss. Yeah.
Yes. That shit is so dope. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, the fact that can live on the same album as A Thousand Whispers and the Who sample is great.
Yeah. And the title track too, which is actually right before that.
I love the chorus for that shit now.
Oh my goodness.
Is there any Midwest overlap for you guys? Like him being from Ohio? Is there any is there part of his sound that resonates for you because of the like Midwest connection? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And he knows like our older homies.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been following him for a long time. He actually performed at the first on-stage rap battle I ever did. First on-stage battle tournament I ever performed at. It was him, Blueprint, Lee, and DJ Prism, rest in peace.
Shout out to Prism.
Yeah, it was right after God Lyrics came out. Sound went out, and he did all of the verses, all of the verses to the bonus track, bonus spoken word, acapella, top speed, while Brew Lee smacked him with dreads, spinning them around, and didn't skip a fucking word.
Yeah,
crazy.
Oh, so they're like the guys in Columbus, Ohio, were really connected to rappers in Chicago. They all performed back and forth a whole lot. Like my cousin was actually real cool with a lot of these guys because he went to college down there, and like there was just this pipeline through a lot of the Midwestern cities, especially Columbus, and because of Scribble Jam, there was it being like just in Cincinnati, and that being the Midwest hub. Yeah, it influenced a lot. Like we fed off each other. The Midwest fed off each other a lot more than people think we did. One thing we've noticed over the years, people keep asking us how we're definitely influenced by the East Coast. And we're like, yeah, kind of, yes, sure. But yeah, there's this whole fact that people have been rapping in the Midwest since 1980 that we got off of,
God Lyrics is one of my favorites too, just for the record.
It's insane. It's insane.
What's really dope is like we had so many iconic rap groups from Chicago, right? But not just like, you know, we didn't just have Kanye West. We didn't just have Common. We had Rubber Room. You know what I mean? Who
Yeah.
like on the indie scene are a huge fucking deal and very influential. You know what I mean? Like so many really ill freestyle battlers like Juice. You know what I mean? Like who was in our backyard. The dude is like an absolute freestyle and rap battle legend. Like we had so many people to look up to in the Midwest. The dudes in Columbus, dudes in Chicago, some folks in Indiana, in our like backyard too.
You know,
Right.
like cats in Detroit, Minneapolis,
Detroit, yeah.
Pontiac. I think is Binary Star from Pontiac, I think.
I think so, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know,
One B-Lo. What'd you say, Gil?
I think maybe from Pontiac, yeah.
yeah, like cats in the Midwest tape traded and did a lot of shows, and they were tiny shows, but like we were at them. We were at them. We were buying the
That's
records. We're trying to haggle down the prices because we were young and broke. But yeah, like there was a lot of like cultural exchange between cities.
Right.
Yeah. At least for us.
And even, but there was a time when Spitballers came. Now Spitballers is this big old crew in Columbus. Pretty much everybody who we know from Columbus was in it. Like all of the Megahertz dudes, Blueprint, Illogic, Brew Lee, all those people were in it. Prism. But they had a crazy show, and Kevin Beecham was holding. I think it was right before Kevin Beecham moved to Minneapolis. But the beat for Hold the Floor was on this burn CD that they had, but somebody, I think it was Brew Lee rapping over it. But I have it on a burn CD. But that was a whole bunch of guys from Columbus who came to Sub Team, just ripped it wide open. So that's always been going on.
Well, fellas, thank you for picking this album and giving us a lot to talk about. And thank you for coming through again. Salt is an incredible album. Congratulations. And it drops on the 7th of November. Yep. We have heard it. Trust us, it's amazing. Excited for folks to be able to tap in on the 7th. Before we let y'all go, is there anything that you want folks to know about just like Salt? Like, is there physicals that folks are gonna be able to buy? Like any of that kind of stuff that you want to shout out?
Yeah, we have vinyl that's rapidly selling right now. Thank you to everybody supported it. You know, a limited run. The first run's $250. So we have that right now. You know, it's dope. It's a double LP with a lyric book. And it's a lot of lyrics. A lot of lyrics. It's, you know,
a shit ton of lyrics.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's a cool piece to have. You know what I'm saying? The art's done by one of my heroes, Kodak 38, who's also a really good producer. And like, it's just a great project. It's a labor of love. It's 3 separate continents, it's 8 separate cities. You know, all put together. You know.
Yeah.
And also too, if you're listening to this audio before December 18th, if you want to see us perform, the album release party is December 18th at Shuba's in Chicago.
Yeah, and on top of that, shout out to Buenaventura Records, who's putting the record out, and to AOE, who produced it all. Much respect to both of them. So make sure you check out the label on Buenaventura Records.
And shout out to Ill Subliminal and Malak Al, who couldn't be
Yes,
exactly. Shout out to them.
Absolutely.
That's right,
brothers.
Well, thank you again, fellas. We really appreciate your time and all that you do, folks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you. The pleasure's ours. Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Let's stay locked in for the future. We got more stuff coming.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will do that. This has been The Next Movement. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.
A figure died from a straight below our jogging. Let's call it an art project. Most capes don't wear heroes. Another circular logic. Pussy accident for straws looking for turtles' mouths on Earth Day. All proceeds go to whichever group reduced black Earth rates sparkly. Train delays fucked up your revolution on Saturday. Thus illustrates the difference between ash and snow. Though all potholes are fixed on the other side of the horizon. It's like Death Punk Afro jokes, rip jeans, that's the look. The shit tape, that's the hook. I finally know what I'm selling you. It's like hide your wife beside the crib, hide the neck behind the ribs. The side of the town is an obelisk compelling overly excited kids. I'm behind the start to the product, the atoms, the golden eyes advanced. The 4 line and 45 landed for starfuckers, clawing at the middle. Where they be bridge, not strong enough for standing. I left the ethic in the caskets where my friends live. And the habits that defended a scar and garnered for living out someone else's happy ending. Used to tear down false idols. I'm trying to bring back the feeling before the sunbread is killing. And it comes back as t-shirts too expensive for children. My secret Santa gift is always a b-boy in the crosshairs. I finally know what I'm selling y'all. It's like lift crown and stay out. Get down or lay down. Lift his ass up, face down. God bless America.
Yeah.
No
Yo, you
brands.
sip the liquid so literal. Shed the mold you fit and the lid of you. After my gut, you with the cyclical. Cuckle out, catch your blog and abuse and infinitesimal chemicals. Why would you do that? Fuck that. Let me ask you a question. Why would you write that? It's clumsily catchy in the gallery call that you call a creative genius. I call it luck.